Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Project Build presented by Mömus. We are makers of stuff for car guys, and today we're going to talk about how to prepare your BMW for winter. Now most of this stuff applies to any car, but some stuff is specific for BMWs, especially of this age, so early 90s to mid 2000s, let's say. And yeah, as you can see, she looks beautiful, she looks clean, and she looks protected, which is the main theme of today's video. So let's come around here, because I have prepared some stuff. As you can see, I almost look like, like I'm at the market stand selling my goods, but that's not what it is. Because what it is all the stuff that I used to prepare this car, and some of the stuff that I will use to prepare this car further for the winter months. So the very first step is going to be to wash the entire car. Simply rinse it off as usually, and use a high pressure washer if you can, because we're driving in the winter months. There's salt sticking to the car, there are small rocks sticking to the car, because I actually had stones sticking to the paint, small rocks and small stones and dirt and sand and salt sticking to the paint and to the body, and it was just horrendous. So you really have to rinse it very well before you do this wash, to get rid of that you don't scratch the rest of the paint. And then use a very soft microfiber wash mitt like that. I use a separate one for the bottom to do like under the sails and everything. And yeah, use a wax-free shampoo that you want to use. Oh! For this you need to use a wax-free shampoo, except if you already have a sealant, because that is going to be the next step. You want to rid the body, the paintwork and everything of any waxes and greases and stuff that is going to not make the sealant adhere properly to the body, to the paint. I also put a sealant on the headlights and on the taillights, just to not make stuff stick to it. You know, even snow is easier to clear, snow and ice. And yeah, and after your primary wash, in between you're gonna do the next step. You want to completely dry it off with some microfiber towels. Might want to use some bigger than these, because it will make life a lot easier. And again, you don't want to put too much pressure, you literally just want to wipe the water off. Use a few towels, because in the winter months the water dries a lot slower. Bam! And so the next step is indeed going to be the sealant. So our E39 happens to be almost completely rust free, except for some tiny bubbles under the tank flap, or in the opening of the brother. So our E39 happens to be completely rust free, except for some tiny bubbles behind the tank flap, but for the rest it's completely rust free. Now in the winter months it's already moist, as you can see, it's raining now, and there's snow and there are freezing temperatures, and there's a lot of salt on the road, so it's all perfect for making your car rust. But that's what we want to prevent here. Now if you have already a sealant on your car, you can use a regular wax and shampoo for your wash, but if you don't, this is important, because the next step is to seal your car, and you don't want any grease or wax left on the body, because the sealant will not adhere properly to the paint and to the body. And for this I used a nanotechnology high gloss sealant here that I applied with the regular foam pad, and then it's simply just putting it on and buffing it off. You can also use a soft flannel cotton towel here instead of the buffing pad for buffing your sealant off, because it's not rough at all, but it's not as soft as microfiber, so it will cut through the sealant a lot better. And that's very simple. That step didn't take very long at all. I mean, the wash takes what, like 10-15 minutes, and around the same time for putting the sealant on, and around the same time for buffing it off. So in total you'll spend 45 minutes on that, and then all of your paint is protected. As you can see, it creates this kind of a hydrophobic layer on top of your paint, And what that does is, instead of the paint or the water actually touching your paint, it stands on top of the sealant, so it's not touching your paint, and it will not, or should not, cause any rusting or any corrosion. And if you have any black trim, rubber and plastic black trim on your car, you want to apply some sealant or dressing for those parts as well, because they dry out because of the salt, right? You want to do this step after you do the sealant, because you don't want to have this. Usually there's some kind of greasiness in these products, and you don't want the sealant of your paint not to stick, or at least I don't. I'm not gonna tell you what to do. Hey, yo. Anyway, so the reason I washed underneath the sails as well is to use a transparent, this one actually dried a bit yellowish, but it's fine on a lighter color, to use the transparent wax. And I did that to prevent any, you know, when you're driving and small rocks and stones are flying out from underneath your tires and hitting your sails, you might have stone chips and where it starts to rust. Now luckily the E39 and most BMWs of this generation have a stone chip protection. But of course it's aging, it's getting hard, so it's easier to get stone chips in it. So this transparent wax is a good idea. But if you have darker color cars, for example dark blue or black even, and this stuff dries up yellowish and you're really bothered by it, you can use a black wax spray as well. I think that's quite important to use. Also, I used it in the arches as well. And you know, if your car has fender liner, this is the front right side fender liner. If your car has these, it's important to have these installed, because probably if your car has these installed, it means that there is less underbody protection, because the plastic will take most of the beating. And so if you don't have them installed, then rust will come. The reason why I'm saying all of this, I brought you something here to show you. It's the fender of my GTI, and as you can see, there's small amount of bubbles in here, rust bubbles or corrosion bubbles. This was actually induced by driving a bit too wide of a tire, a bit too sporty of a tire, but that doesn't matter here, because as you can see, here looks relatively innocent, but on the inside you can see the rust is in a quite far stage already, and this can't be helped by just rubbing this off a little bit and then repainting just the front. You really have to do all this work, or just replace the fender. So that's why I did all the rust prevention. I really want to keep this car rust free. All these products here will help. I also got here a general interior cleaner, and that I use, for example, to get the salt stains and so forth off the sails. As well, a very important thing to note is that when you're washing your car, is to do properly the door jambs. Really, to wash them, I use this little spray that I made with just dish soap and water and a brush. Cleaned it all up and then properly dried it off, because a lot of salt and road grime gathers in there and really gets to sit there, you know. It doesn't easily come out of the door jamb, so can cause a lot of rust again. Then we go on to the winter driving. You're gonna need some good winter tires with a deep profile. It's best, or it's better to run deep profile, not look so good with low profile tires, but it is for your own safety. Then I also sealed the windows, and the seal on the windows I applied, actually I tried different things. I applied just with some shop towel and buffed it off, and I applied with another foam pad and buffed that off, and the result is about equal, so you can use whatever you like. But the main thing is that the rain with all the upcoming road spray, how do you call it, with all the tire spray from the car in front, with salt, with rocks, with dirt, doesn't stick so good, doesn't stick so well to your windows, but will literally just fly off. Then I also replaced the wipers, because on this car I had the problem that the wipers were run down a bit, and in the winter when it's dark and raining a lot, it creates sort of this sliminess in front of your field of vision and you can't really see where you're going. That's a problem. After I replaced the wipers, and you should also really consider this, guys, because it's literally a 2-minute job, as you'll see now. Yeah, and it will really make winter driving a lot more comfortable. There's no more glare on the windshield at all, especially in combination with this anti-rain stuff. That's great. It's also very important to use the correct oil in the winter, because what happens if you don't have the right winter viscosity of your oil is that you start the car and you might drive off and the viscosity is not yet at its correct thickness, not yet at the correct viscosity, and you might scrape your cylinder walls or something like that. And it just happened, it needs to happen only once, you know, that you drive away a bit too early, and from then on it's gonna keep scraping that cylinder wall and it will just turn into big damage. And after a few months you will have that blue smoke coming out the exhaust, so that's really not what you want. So look at the winter weight, drive with the correct one, look at your manual for the specifications that you're gonna need. And then also, now that we're talking about the engine, this is especially for BMWs, especially this generation, is the thermostat. Here's my new one to be installed, because I've noticed now that the temperatures get colder and on the highway the car loses temperature, so it will warm up properly. I go to the highway and it will lose temperature again, and that's really not good for the engine because it will also cool down the oil. And then we have what I just said, maybe. And I thought whilst I'm there I might as well do the belt and the tensioner, and I have the pulley as well, because the winter months are a lot tougher on these kind of products. You know, the belt might lose the suppleness. The belt might lose the suppleness because of the low temperatures. Tensioner is also suffering, you know, especially if you have a hydraulic tensioner. This is a mechanical one, but if you have a hydraulic one, it will certainly suffer from the cold temperatures. We are going to change these parts actually tomorrow, and a video for that will come next year in 2018. So stay tuned for that. So the next thing is more of a personal grudge of mine, but it is to clean your windows before you drive off and clean the rest of the car. Now that you have the sealant on, you can use a microfiber sponge or something like that to clean the snow off your hood and off the roof and off the trunk lid. Because when you're driving on the highway and it's all flying off into the windscreen of the driver behind you, he will not have a very pleasant day, I can tell you that. So now, the next step is the light, because as you know, in the winter it gets dark and it's basically dark all the time, and the lights might not be sufficient. So if you have a halogen headlight equipped car, it might be wise to switch to these xenon look or blue vision or something like that bulbs, because they might produce less lumens, but the white light usually bounces off, reflects off things a lot better in the night. So I like to use those for the main beams, and then I've got the xenon for the dipped right there, so that should be fine. And for the fog lights I also upgraded to these kind of blue vision type bulbs because of the fog. You want to avoid the fog, right? But actually, in my experience, I think the yellowish normal halogen lights for fog lights, they work a bit better. That must be why they use them at Le Mans, I suppose. And now for a personal message. I wish all of you guys out there who are watching a very pleasant Christmas time and a fantastic New Year. Thanks for watching. We kicked it to 850 subscribers in only 6 months. Amazing stuff. Huh? And so thank you to all of you who are watching here. And that's it. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time. Bye bye.